Good evening, everyone. Today we're talking about gambling harms and gambling addiction and the impact on people's lives. And we're honored that we have guests here with us today. Adrian. Adrian is from a charity called GamCare. He is the outreach and engagement practitioner for GamCare. We have Colin Walsh, who works as a lived experience manager at the same charity, GamCare. And then we have Mark Pickering, who works as a commercial affairs manager at Bet No More Global, and he is going to share his lived experiences as well. And then we've got Sylvester, who's also somebody with lived experience with gambling harm, and he's currently working for the Alerts Group. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'm going to start with you, Adrian. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your charity, GamCare.
Yep, so as you mentioned, I'm Adrian, outreach and engagement practitioner. So I work across the East Midlands, raising awareness and support about gambling harms, collaborating with charities like yourself, just making sure we can reduce the stigma of gambling harms, working in the community, so making sure people are aware of our charity. So we do offer free advice and support. There is no waiting list, and we do support people who are affected others. It could be a family member, friend, loved one, etc. Signposting people into our services and other services like the NHS clinics, Gordon Moody, any aftercare as well. So yeah, we do offer support as well, like I say, raise awareness and try and bring people together. Maybe people from like the Black community who may be hard to reach, and Muslims and things like that as well. So I'll just share a bit of data. So we have had a survey of 4,000 people last year. So that was commissioned by us as well, found that 1 in 6 people had harmful gambling levels, and through the helpline as well, we're impacted by the cost of living crisis as well. People on universal credit as well were betting, so you can see that people who are on low income as well were affected by this. People on disability benefits were trying to make ends meet in gambling as well. You had people who were trying to make money through gambling as well, so 50% of these were found to be spending a lot of money on this as well. We also had 4 in 10 people found that gambling, they thought would improve their gambling, like a quick way to make money as well. So you could see the cost of living impacted families in the last 12 months. So I'm just going to pass you on to Colin now.
Thank you. Right. Welcome, Colin. If you'd like to introduce yourself, and then if we could start maybe talking about how you started volunteering for GamCare, so your journey to GamCare, and your lived experiences, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Rehana, and thank you, Adrian. I love the work you do, and thanks for bringing us together today. So yeah, hi everybody, I'm Colin. I'm lived experience manager at GamCare, where I work across GamCare and the National Gambling Support Network. So that is the organisations that come together across the UK to provide the support that Adrian's just talked about. So I've got my own experience of gambling harm and recovery, so I'm going to talk about that for a little bit. I think everybody who shares their experience does so in their own way. So yeah, I'll go for let's start talking and see what comes out today.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think anybody I meet now or who in the place I'm in today sees me as like a fairly normal and decent person, and I'm really happy with my life right now. But that's not always been the case. So my last bet was just over 11 years ago now,
Wow.
June 2012. And from a young age, from like mid-teens, probably earlier than that, to be fair, I never had a healthy relationship with gambling or with money, and I gambled to levels that would be seen as problematic for close to 20 years. It escalated progressively over that time and is at the high end of the PGSI scale. So that's how we measure gambling harm in the UK. It was at that highest levels for probably 10 or 12 years.
Wow.
I'm not going to sort of go from sort of being a young child to being older, because I think that'll take way longer than the time we've got today. I can see Adrian smiling. It's because, yes, Adrian, that's because I am so old. But I'm going to talk a little bit about. It's a relatively familiar story, I suppose, where gambling gets worse through sort of teens into adulthood.
So where can I ask,
Sure.
how did you get introduced to gambling? What, as a young person,
Yeah,
what
I
was
guess I was probably around it. Neither of my parents experienced gambling, were particularly heavy gamblers, but my grandparents used to run pubs. So I was
okay,
around sort of fruit machines then, trips to
okay.
the seaside, etc. You see, my parents separated when I was quite young. Don't really remember them together, but times when I spend with my dad, who I no longer see, is no longer part of my life. But I'm alright with that. He used to did gamble, probably to levels that were problematic, but I only saw that very occasionally. But I was always interested in money as well. I think it came from a family where I didn't have a load of money, and
Mm,
saw gambling as a way of perhaps making my situation better.
yeah,
Um, Went to university. That didn't go great, because I had more time, more freedom, more access to money, credit. Um, but yeah, I still got on all right in life, really. I thought I was getting on all right in life. I met my wife at a fairly young age. I was 21, she was 18. So we were together through sort of the real escalation and my sort of peak of my gambling. So I guess if I talk a bit about what my life was like towards the end of that time,
yeah, yeah.
to the outside world, it looked really successful and glamorous. I was married with 2 kids, had my own business, employed 20 people, had a big house with overlooking a lake, a few holidays a year, BMW, like the image of what in my head and what a lot of people think success is like. But the reality was really, really different, and people never saw the real me, if that makes sense. And the impact that had on my own mental health, I never really saw it at the time, but I do now. People, and that dual life, I hid it from everybody, even my own family, the people closest to me. People thought that I liked maybe the odd bet on sports or a trip to the races, but that was just the bit that I allowed people in to see. I was really gambling secretively for years, and it escalated to the point where it consumed me, and it was like unmanageable. Like I said, my mental health was horrific. My self-care was non-existent. Had 2 kids and a wife, but I was never really there. Sometimes I wasn't there physically because I'd be out supposedly at work or down the bookies or in a casino. Sometimes I wasn't. I was probably never mentally there because my mind was always elsewhere. I didn't particularly enjoy work or have healthy relationships there. The lifestyle that I tried to portray meant I had huge sort of debts, mortgages, credit cards, loans, that people didn't really know about. Money taken from the business to keep up that facade of success. I had around like maybe 10, 15 online gambling accounts, gambled
Wow.
every day, bookmakers, and like in the morning, I'd get up to make a cup of tea. I used to like make my wife, I still do actually, make her a cup of tea in the morning, but I'd be on my phone, probably playing blackjack whilst I was doing it. And that was normal. That was my life. I had like 2 or 3 hour lunch breaks that were
Just bear with me, Colin.
absolutely.
Somebody on, can you put yourself on mute? I'm not sure I can hear somebody's background.
Are you lying?
I'm not sure. Is it you, Jamila? Can I get you to put on mute, and Ismail, you as well? Ismail, you're on mute now. Jamila, can you put yourself on mute, please?
I don't know how to.
Okay. So if you go to the right-hand side of your square, there should be a blue. When you move your mouse, you'll see a blue, and it should say mute. If you click on mute,
How do
you've done it. That's fine.
I?
Oh, it's gone again. Right. Okay. We'll try. All right. Ask to mute. Can you try that now? Yeah, we're on mute. Lovely.
Cool.
Colin, so you were
Yeah.
saying, I'm so sorry to stop you.
No, it's all right. Don't worry about it. It's fine. So yeah, the life that I had, I was talking about sort of really hiding the gambling, which to me, it was normal. I didn't know a different way, but I now
Wow.
see how, yeah, I made a lot of bad decisions for a long period of time. And even I had wins in that time, but I could never take the money. I could never walk away with any money, if that makes sense. I wouldn't stop until the money was gone. Essentially, I didn't have any more access to money. So like monthly balancing between credit cards, overdraft loans that people didn't know about, got more loans to pay some of that back, but in reality it all just went on gambling. I was a director of a company, so I was responsible for paying my own tax. I clearly didn't do that. Why would I pay tax when I could gamble it and turn it into more money? That was the story I told myself in my head. I talk about not really being there for my kids. That's the bit that I find hardest still now. Like they were, when I stopped gambling, they were 1 and 4, and I used to read them the bedtime stories, which were the Gruffalo and Zog. If anybody's got kids, you might know those books.
Yes.
But I'd learned those stories in my head, so I could just do it from memory and gamble on my phone rather than actually being there and present for that time. That's probably, to this day, that's the stuff that I regret more. So the hole was getting deeper and deeper, and I should have sought help and stopped digging, but I couldn't see any way out. So I did what a lot of gamblers do and got bigger shovels, and so gambled bigger and bigger sums in the hope that it would eventually come good. I'd have a big win and that would sort out all the financial stuff. I saw it as a financial problem, but it never did. In my last month of gambling, so I never really like to talk loads about numbers because gambling's all relative. It depends on your circumstances. Anybody who's gambling more than they can afford to, I would recommend you seek some support and look at that relationship. But I think the numbers remind me of how scary life was at some of the decisions that I made, I guess. So in 1 month on one account, I made 120 deposits and placed over 9,000 bets and staked. So that is the amount that I gambled, was just short of £1 million in 1 month.
And that was just one.
That's on one account, yeah. And
One
there was
account.
in-person gambling and other accounts. So, to be honest, I never looked back much at the time because I wanted to focus on getting better. When I did look back, a lot of my data wasn't available. That was something I got from one of the accounts. So yeah, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So yeah, eventually got to the scale where it couldn't be hidden anymore. Like, we're getting too many phone calls about bills that weren't being paid, loans that weren't being paid back. We went on holiday, and I knew that I wasn't there to deflect it. So the plates that I've been spinning were going to sort of start to fall, really. I started getting messages and phone calls from work about transfers to my account from the business account, and I knew the game was up, but still never faced reality. I just put my phone on airplane mode. I remember on our last day, I was sat on a beach with Charlie, who's my youngest. He was 1 at the time, and I did it because he was so young. He didn't really know what I was talking about, and I found it easier to talk to somebody who didn't know what I was talking about, I suppose. But I remember telling him about my gambling. And that's the first person I ever told. We were sat in his like little pop-up kids tent on a beach, and I told him that like life was going to change. I didn't know what that meant for me or for him, whether I'd still be here in a week, still be in his life in a week. So yeah, I guess I had 3 options. That's looking back now, I probably had 3 options, which were like continue lying, continue doing what I'd done 15, 20 years in denial, in the belief that it would come good. Accept that the problem was with gambling and had to do something about it, or remove myself from the problem, which is all too common in the world that we live in. So yeah, I'd like to say that I made that, but yeah, I made the tough decision, I guess, which is to accept that I had an issue. I tried one last bet to see if it was actually on the lottery. I was like, right, well, if it's meant to be, it could be me. That's what the lottery kept telling me. So maybe I'll win the lottery. I think I'd be dead or in prison now if I'd won the lottery that day. So yeah, for the first time in like 20 years or so, I actually accepted that I had an issue and sought some support, which was difficult for me to do at the time, but it was only later that I realized that really that weight that lifted off my shoulders, I just put it onto somebody else, put it onto my wife's. She knew nothing until one day when she knew everything. So yeah, it was a slow process for me, but through talking therapy, support from my family, peer support, and little baby steps. It's not a quick thing, recovery. I started to realise that abstention was possible, and a different life was possible, and I could get better. I had to learn that it wasn't about money. It was escape from other things that I wasn't happy with, and had to address those. I never had those healthy coping mechanisms. Or a good relationship with my emotions. That was never something that I was great with. There's a lot of shame and stigma and guilt. We talk about that with gambling a lot. And whilst I'm happy to do things like this and talk about my experiences today, I found it quite difficult to talk about for a long period of time. I think maybe I tell a different story now that I'm in a good place, and don't mind talking about it. And I know it's got a happy ending, because I'm here and I'm doing it right. So yeah, I'm always grateful for the organisations who supported me, and I know that without it, I wouldn't be here to see my kids grow up. I'm amazed my wife stood by me. I wonder if it was the other way around, whether that would be the same, but I don't question that too much, just in case she changes her mind. But I never take it for granted as well. I talked, this bit gets more difficult. So I talked about being in a good place. So when it was the 10th anniversary, my 10th anniversary in recovery, I got a phone call from somebody I know through my own network. I've known him for 7 or 8 years, but not seen him for a while. And I assumed it was him calling to say, like, well done on 10 years. That's a long time. It was his girlfriend, to say that he'd got in a really dark place mentally, and the only way he saw out of that was to take his own life.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, he was in his mid-30s, had 3 kids who were all under 6.
Wow.
Which is tough.
Yeah.
And it shows me, I guess in some ways, it shows me the value in what we do, in what organisations, any organisation in the sector does, and why it's so important to get people the support when they need it and provide that ongoing support. Because accessing support straight away, there's then the longer term journey we all take. So yeah, I do a lot of this stuff for him and for people like him. So yeah, that dark place analogy is something people use a lot. But then from there, I know he talks about what I do now, really. So yeah,
Colin, before you do, could I ask, so how old were you when you actually stopped? I know you said it had been at least 20 years of gambling.
30,
but when you actually
15, I was 34. So I'm probably gambled from mid to late teens. I remember being not old enough to gamble and gambling in bookmakers, for example.
So I know you said that you told your little son was the first person you shared with. You said it out loud that this is my situation, and you made the decision to seek help. So was it your partner that you shared with, or did you know where to get help? How did you go about that?
Yeah, I guess the world's changed in that time a little bit, really. So I spoke to my wife. Obviously, I had to tell her everything, which because I'd been there was so much hidden stuff that it took time, but I told her everything. The support network has evolved a lot in my time in recovery, so there wasn't the same support there at the time that's available today. But yeah, through talking therapy, through GA, I know GA is not for everybody, but I would recommend people try it, because it works for enough people, and you meet others who've lived that same journey, and it gives some hope. Because when gambling is a really lonely place, I thought there was nobody else in the world that was like me. But you meet other people who have been there, and have successfully changed their life, and want to use that experience to help other people. That's why I've always got massive respect for people like Sylvester and like Mark, who are here today using their lived experience for good, because it's so important. Without hearing journeys that this is possible, I think people still I talked about a dark place, people still stumble around in the dark, and there's no one there to pick them up. And I know sometimes people don't make it out. So yeah, that's, I think, owning it and sharing it and being open to talking about it, which isn't right for everybody, but I think it's a really powerful thing. And I'm really lucky now that I see firsthand people who have been on similar journeys. Everybody's gambling is different. Gambling doesn't always affect people, just people who look like me, for example. Anybody can be impacted by gambling related harm. It's becoming more normalized in society. It's becoming more recognized. And whilst protection is getting better, there are things like GamBan and GamStop these days that are free to access and can be real barriers to gambling. It still means there's still a need to support people who are experiencing gambling harm. So yeah, hopefully that answers that.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. And before you go to talk about how you ended up working for GamCare and sharing your lived experience, I'm just going to read the chat. There's a comment in the chat. Gambling companies make it so easy to start through adverts every evening when people are at their most vulnerable. I don't know whether anybody wants to say anything about that.
Yeah, I don't mind while I'm talking. I think I agree. I think advertising regulation needs to be tightened. I'm not. I don't know what people would expect my viewpoint on this to be, but I'm not anti-gambling. I don't think I can a campaign to say ban gambling. I don't see a world where that's successful. So for me, the way that I approach it is to say gambling companies should be better. They do better. So looking at, I think, make them raise their standards to ensure fewer people are harmed, and also be better at supporting the people who are harmed. So it's the same problem from two sides, and hopefully that makes the world a slightly better place for my kids, and means that they can't be harmed in the same way that I was. But I agree on advertising, and I think I was quoted recently actually saying that I remember tobacco advertising in sport, like in snooker and in Formula One and things like that.
Yes.
I can see I would in my lifetime, I'd like to think that gambling advertising won't be a part of sport. Well, that doesn't stop it being on TV, but it means, and we've seen some baby steps with the Premier League and the shirt front sponsorship that's coming. I might be wrong, but I can see it coming.
That's good to hear. And it doesn't matter how slow, if it's happening, it's going in the right direction. It's a start, isn't it? So it's good. So Colin, how did you end up with GamCare?
Yeah, just briefly, because I know I've talked for a while now, and the other guys are going to come in. So I looked at my life a few years ago. I wasn't happy doing what I did. Didn't see myself doing the same for the rest of my working life. So started to I started doing counselling training actually, or I did some counselling qualifications, and my original plan was to go down that route, to be a counsellor or a practitioner for an organisation, perhaps like GamCare. I didn't really know where I was going to end up, but I did some training. Then the pandemic came along and put all of that on hold, and so I started volunteering in different organisations, GamCare being one of them. Glenn, which is the Gambling Lived Experience Network. That's a new charity. I was involved in setting that up. I'm a trustee there. Got more active in active volunteering because I was working from home and could. Carried on doing more training and more qualifications, and then jobs like mine started to come up. So lived experience were also people who've accessed services that didn't exist in the gambling space before probably 3 years ago, anywhere. And then I think that I got quite lucky really, in that the stars just aligned with this role came up. It fit nicely with the experience that I had, my professional experience, as well as the lived experience that I've got. And whilst now I don't work directly with clients, I don't support people through work, I don't support people directly, but the work that I do shapes the services. It's more service design and development, so it shapes the services that go on to support 10,000 people a year directly, or 45,000 people a year through the helpline. I think I try and make everything we do better, because I know how important it is. So yeah, a little bit about it.
That's really, really interesting that, you talk about the direction you were going to go in afterwards and where you ended up. but the fact that you were really happy with your role and the contribution you make to all those people that are helped by the charity, I think it's fantastic. But most importantly, thank you for sharing your story, because I imagine even though that's what that's part of what you do, it's still difficult to share and revisit things. It's not comfortable, so thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for being here and giving hope to other people, because like you said, I mean, 20 years of hiding that must have been, although it was part and parcel for you to hide everything, the energy and the thought to hide and live a secret life must have been so difficult emotionally, psychologically, in every way, and the amount of time it would have taken up, not only to be doing the gambling without anybody knowing, but also to then cover that, and to still continue to be present in all those other aspects of your life.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I used to lose track of who got told what, and that took over a lot of my thought process. Was, what does this person know? What have I told them? What do they think they know? Yeah, you're exactly right. So, yeah, thanks for
thank you.
listening.
And on another occasion, I'd love to learn more. Mark, would you like to go next? So, those of our attendees who may have joined later, Mark is a commercial affairs manager at Bet No More Global, and his aim is to educate and train both the industry and the workplace around the gambling harms for the benefit of customers and employees. And he's also part of a lived experience advisory panel to the Gambling Commission. So, Mark, if you'd like to go next and tell us about your experiences, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks, Colin. It's good to listen to your story. I for one glad you're here still, and yeah, great guy, and does a lot of helps so many people. My journey really did start as a child. I remember two real instances as a child, and one was going to my granddad's every year. One day here on Grand National Day as a family, and we'd all go, and even as children, we'd be allowed to pick horses and put a small bet on. But the other one, the more disturbing one, was that my dad was a long distance lorry driver and worked away most of the week. But his coming home on a Friday wasn't coming home as a normal dad would at like tea time. It was coming home at midnight after going out playing cards every week. And really, my highs and lows from gambling started there, because like if he had a good week, we would have a good week. If he had a bad week, we would have a terrible week. And at times in my life, there was 4 children. At times he'd go missing for 3-4 months at a time. My mum wouldn't know where he was, and then he'd just come back. Rolling on to, I left school at 16. I had no choice, had to get a job, put money into the house, and I actually got a job working in an hardware store at 17 in my local town. And quite ironically, about a month after I started, there was an arcade put in next door. That was the start of 18 months of problems where I actually just got addicted to slot machines. Quite interestingly, I met my future wife after around about 18 months. And her brother actually managed to get me another job. And I actually moved away from that job. And I think if you've got an higher purpose in life, you can actually move on from things and change and actually stop. And although for the next 30 years, I gambled, and I gambled on a regular basis, it was never out of control. So all of a sudden, I went from gambling every day, having a real problem, to not having a problem. However, I didn't really get to the crux of the problem. I didn't get any treatment. I didn't get any help. So the underlying reasons probably why I started in the first place were still there. And I got to about the age of 45. By then, like Colin, I'd got 2 kids. I was married. We got a lovely house. I'd actually gone and trained to be a financial advisor. I was earning six figures. We had 5-6 holidays a year. I ran both my kids' football teams, my daughter's and my son's, for 6 years. Was part of the committee. So yeah, just a fantastic life. And then things started to go wrong. I had a back operation. My dad died of motor neurons disease after only 18 months of the illness. Both the kids stopped playing football at the same time. They're only 11 months apart, and they got to 16, 17, and they just didn't want to play anymore. So my whole world really fell apart because me and my wife had drifted apart because like my life was work and football. And all of a sudden that part of my life that I really enjoyed had gone, and I started to gamble. And one day my wife said to me, like, I know you're gambling, I know you're lying to me, and it's either the gambling has to stop or we're going to split up. I left that day. So the gambling was far more important than the marriage. But as a consequence to that, I ended up living in a flat on my own. I then changed jobs and went self-employed. And all of a sudden, yeah, and I actually lived across the road to my two brothers who also gambled. So like realistically, all we ever did in my spare time was gamble, drink, and go out. And the gambling just got worse and worse and worse. I was still earning really, really good money, so I could cope with it over the next 3 or 4 years. But then it got to the point where, a little bit like Colin, I wasn't paying my taxes. I'd got credit cards running up. I actually started then to steal money as well. So I got to the point of really getting to the last straw. Because I was self-employed, I actually owned my clients, and I decided to sell about a third of my clients, and I sold around about 150 grand's worth, and that hit my bank account. Within a week, it had gone, all of it. And I remember sitting in the property I rented on my own, and it was like, really, it was crossroads. What do I do next? And it's like, and I'm not the sort of person that would commit suicide, but it certainly was going through my mind. And just to end it all, I ended up actually going on the internet, googling the organization I worked with, and actually whistleblowing myself. So I owned up to what I did. And I went from really being earning all that money, got a great life, although it wasn't a great life to me. It looked like I'd got a great life, and to being bankrupt, homeless, getting interviewed by the police. They didn't charge me because the company didn't charge me. However, 11 months later, CPS did, and I ended up going to prison for 15 months. That was quite an interesting experience. The first 9 weeks I was on remand was awful, but I actually had a really good experience in prison because I actually went in with the right attitude, and I wanted to get on and come out and do well. But before going, I also had some treatment through the NHS, some CBT, but also had treatment with GamCare, which really made a massive difference before I went to prison, which meant when I came out, I was in a great position in my own mind to actually move forward and pick my life back up. That's like 7 years on now. And it's been a rocky road. There's been lots of ups and downs, not from a point of view of betting, but like I always thought I'd get a job easy, and it was a struggle in the starting point. I actually walked the streets selling gas and electricity to businesses for 18 months. I got a job in a car garage for 5 months, and then COVID hit. And all that time though, I was also doing training around mental health and mentoring, and did a lot of work volunteering for GamCare, going in a prison, doing a talk, helping them produce an in-cell workbook during COVID. And then all of a sudden, this job opportunity came up at Epic Restart Foundation. So it was a brand new charity that helped in aftercare. So people would go through treatment at GamCare or like Gordon Moody Residential, and then a little bit like my journey. That 7 years in recovery is difficult because you've still got financial issues. I got a bankruptcy order that lasts 11 years, so I couldn't get credit. That means you've got a real struggle when you're trying to
Yeah.
find somewhere to live.
So Mark, this is the long-term impact of that lifestyle, I suppose.
Yeah.
And so obviously having gone to prison, that had an impact. And then coming out trying to look for work must have been really difficult. But it seems that you were really determined to change your life around. And so even knocking on doors to sell gas and electric sounds like, you know, you really wanted to make a difference. And yes, it was not what you were used to doing and earning the kind of income you were earning before, but it was about changing your life and turning things around. So, and knowing that it's not, things are not going to change overnight. And so giving back, I suppose that that must have been helpful in terms of you emotionally as well, thinking, okay, I'm doing something with the volunteering side as well. So before you found this job, which you're doing now, how long were you kind of not in the kind of employment you wanted to be in?
So I came out of prison in December 2018.
Okay.
So beginning of 2019. So we're now nearly 5 years in.
Okay.
And so really for 2 years, around about 2 years, I bitted and bobbed, struggled, did the volunteering, did the gas and electric, did the car stuff. I was never actually out of work. I always managed to find some work, but it was never doing. And quite ironically, when I came out of prison, I always say to people I had verbal diarrhea. So basically, we lied that much during our period of gambling arm that I actually wanted to be, dare I say, too honest when I was trying to
Yeah.
get a job.
So you were
It
overcompensating, would you say, Mark?
massively overcompensating.
Yeah.
There was no chance I was
Yeah.
getting a job in the
Yeah.
first while I was doing the gas and electric. I was always looking for other opportunities, but it just wasn't going to happen because, like, I was telling them everything at the first phone call.
Yeah.
Gosh, about
Just
scaring
yeah.
somebody away.
So Mark, I'm very mindful of how much time we've got
Yeah.
for Sylvester, but I want you to tell us a little bit about how you landed this job and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so basically I worked for Epic for 2 years, which was an unbelievable opportunity, and they're still doing fantastic things. I now work for Bet No More. Bet No More are predominantly a charity and work closely with GamCare. So there's three real strands to the charity side, and that's one's called Peer Aid, and people that have gone through treatment and are now in sustained recovery of at least 12 months can actually do a peer mentoring course at a level 2, which is an excellent way in to actually helping other people and then working in this space. So like once they've trained, then they can go on to volunteer and mentor to other people that have suffered harm. I know of at least 11 people that have gone on to work in this space as a consequence to doing that program, either with Bet No More or externally. Then there's the women's only program, New Beginnings. Women and stigma has really been at the forefront of probably a movement in the last 2 years where women have really started to come forward and open up. Gordon Moody put a brand new treatment centre in Wolverhampton recently. I know Epic are doing some great work around women and aftercare, and so are Bet No More as well. And the last is a program called Goals, which is a community program that helps individuals before treatment, during treatment, and after treatment. But on the commercial side of the business, that then feeds back into the charity side, we do education to the industry, to the operators around vulnerability, and really focusing on their customer-facing teams to give them the tools to. And we give them training around suicide awareness as well and first aid. But we also now doing training for in the workplace, because most organisations haven't got policies in place And
Yeah.
Colin talked a lot about it being an hidden addiction, and it's really, really important that the awareness and understanding is built up.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for sharing your lived experience. It means a lot to all of us, I'm sure. And I think the more people like yourself and Mark and Sylvester continue to share your experiences, I think that it normalizes talking about it and addresses some of that shame and stigma that exists out there, and hopefully encourage people to reach out for help. So Sylvester, I'd like to go to you next. So Sylvester is somebody who has lived experience of gambling harm. After spending some time in treatment, he's joined the Alerts group to use his experience to help others and make a difference. So, Sylvester, I'd like to go to you, and if you could talk about your experiences and what you're doing now. So, if you could start from maybe your previous experiences and then move on to current, if that's okay.
Sure. Thank you so much, guys. It's been kind of tough listening this because opened so much stuff here of my journey, which is good to remember what we went through, but it's not always easy. So I'm gonna touch a little bit of my childhood because I do believe the childhood is very important in our life. So I'm one of seven, and I lost my father when I was 8. He passed away when he was 34. Today I'm 35. Yes, so he had alcohol addiction. So I'm gonna leave there because I could talk and talk, and I am aware of the time. So I will try to touch the most important aspects of my gambling. In 2013, I'm originally from Poland. In 2013, I graduated from uni as master IT. I moved to UK with my ex-wife at the moment, and really we've been starting from scratch, very tough life. So not knowing anyone, starting with the fruit picking job. I remember one of the job I did was even cleaning in the hotel, because this is how I needed to make decision. I want to try to change my life or go back where I have been. I got married in 2016, and that was where my gambling kind of remind about itself. So I didn't gamble for years. I've been focusing about work, learning the country, many different aspects, and I thought I'm okay till the day when we got married and I got overwhelmed. I felt like I need to provide. We had a lot of plans, a lot of things we've been working toward. I used to do modeling for over 2 years in UK, and this was one of the aspects why I decided to gamble, because I've been working on my portfolio, and photographer who've been holding all my photos, he just disappeared, and I didn't know what to do. So we had kind of plan for how life is gonna be after marriage, and obviously it's like everything like changed from day by day. So then I remind myself, how can I get money? And I remember that I used to gamble. That is one of the way. There've been a lot of advertising, and I started gambling. So it's been on off for till 2020, and that was where my gambling hit very extreme moments. It's been pathological gambling. So to give you a picture how it looked like, there was the moments where I went to work, I used to work as a carpenter in window manufacturing company, and that was the days where I went to work. That was afternoon shift. During the break, I was running across the street with where was like 15 minutes walk. So I
Okay.
run in 5 minutes to the bed shop, place the bed, come back to work with the bed. Instead of working, I've been kind of all the time on the phone online, following the scores. When my bed did fail, I just couldn't cope for even 2 minutes. I needed to stop, run during the working hours again. And I remember that lap I've been doing. There was one night when I've been doing 5-6 times till the bed shop was closed. So that was the extreme of my pathological gambling at the time. I remember the moment where I was waking up, I couldn't sleep. First thing in the morning when they opened bed shop, I was waiting there, and I went back home when the betting shop was closed because I couldn't continue betting. And similar aspect, I could stop only when I lost all money. So everything ended with the situation where my wife, she decided to leave, and I didn't believe her because that was one of many situations when she'd been warning me, and she never did. And this time she actually did. She packed her luggages, and I was shocked. I just didn't know what to do, what to say. It's for me was the end of the world. So I tried to convince her. Lucky that was COVID, so she couldn't just move straight away. She needed to stay a couple of days, and in meantime organize where to go. She talked with her friends, and within about 3 days, she was about to move. And for me, that was very hard. I was trying to be perfect husband, making breakfast and be there and try to show her that I changed, but didn't work. So day before she actually left, I was committed suicide. I just didn't see my life without her. All our journey in UK, we've been together, everything we've been kind of going through together, sacrificing for each other. And I didn't know myself without her. So I took rope. I went to the forest, and actually I've been doing this. That was, people are saying about suicide that many of us have thoughts about suicide, but probably everyone experienced at least one. But that was in my life, first time when I actually craved to end my life, and it was so weird. So actually, I was doing this, and there was the moment where literally final moment where I just stopped, and I was thinking, all mess what I've done, all these responsibilities, debts, and everything, it's gonna stay there, and my wife need to carry. My family need to take responsibility, gonna suffer from my gambling, from my decisions. And that was the moment that was the aspect what didn't allow me to do it. I wanted so much, at the same time I couldn't do it because I love them so much. So with that battle within my head, my friend called me, and I picked the phone, and I told him, he asked me where I am and what I am doing. And I remember I didn't tell him what I'm doing, but he kind of felt, he had sense of it. And we had conversation, and he made me to promise him that I'm not going to do it. So that was the moment where I decided to actually leave, reach for help. And since that, obviously my wife, she left. I stayed on my own, having panic attacks, having very difficult time. And I remember I couldn't stay in flat by myself. So that was the moment where I've been having a lot of support through GA, through other sources, and those supports I could use in that time to actually cope and go through all of this. And remember that was COVID, so we all been in lockdown, so there wasn't interaction. I was like literally cut from everything. So I remember there was like 2020, and since 2020 till 2021, I've been contacting wherever I could. I've been walking into Safe Haven and asking for any type of support, any type of help. And for 1.5 years, I've been having pretty much every day something, counseling, groups, GA, having daily phone calls, because I've been like so desperate to change my life, to go over the addiction. Then suddenly everything ended, like week by week, because everyone said like, I'm doing well in my recovery. And that was the moment when I back to normal life. I met wrong people. There was like financial pressure, and I started behaving in the way where I am not. I wasn't honest with my surroundings about my addiction, about my finances. It ended with kind of questioning my addiction. So I was thinking 1 year, 7 months, I can cope. I'm sure it will be fine, just one bet. And literally within one bet, within 1 week, I ended in same obsession what happened 1 year, 7 months before. Because I had so much support, I reached again some sources, and they told me, go to residential treatment. You never tried. You don't have responsibilities. You are losing nothing. Just save your life. So I called Gordon Moody at the time. I just searched on internet. I didn't have much knowledge what type of residential treatment are available. And I've been told at the time that, yeah, I'm okay. I got just relapse. And so I contacted back my kind of support mentor. He said, like, he told me his story. He said, look, they told me the same during my time. And I was calling them every day, asking for spaces, the residential treatment. And he told me, it's your life. If you want to live, if it's important for you, then go and remind about yourself. And this is what I did. I just called them again, and I said like that I feel hopeless. I need help, and it's not luck. I really need to deal with this addiction. I don't know what to do. And they gave me spot within, I think, 1.5 weeks, which was quite quick. And I spent in Gordon Moody 15 months. Treatment is length of treatment is 14 months, but I needed to take time because I needed kind of rebuild my life, reshape everything, answer questions about who I am, what I want to do.
Yeah.
So recently in 2023 January, I left halfway house, Gordon Moody, and I'm living in my own, come back on my feet, and living and facing challenges, everyday
Well done.
challenges. Thank you so much. So my last bet since that journey, that situation in 2021, it's been 2.5 years ago.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you so much. And my journey of recovery in Gordon Moody was very similar. I've been really desperate. So anything what was possible, what was available, I've been that she was taking. In the halfway house, there wasn't much support available, and I've been communicating with treatment a center that I need help. I need that kind of support within living in bubble, and with that step, and before go to independent life. So I knew I want normal life. So I was searching and searching for independent sources. While I've been living in halfway house, I've been having my own type of support groups, and that was very similar journey. So for past 4 years, I've been very active, trying all different sort of supports what is available over there. In September 22, I got opportunity of joining Alerts, and I am currently working with them. So they give me chance to join and share my experience, which I even didn't consider that I might get the job. And yeah, today I'm grateful and happy to help improve the services, use my knowledge, and make the difference for people who are about to enter the treatment services.
Thank you,
And
Sylvester. Sorry,
yeah,
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. We've got 3 minutes, so
yeah,
I'm just giving you a heads up.
correct.
If you have a 1 minute left, and then I'm going to read out the comments that are in the chat
Sure.
box. Yeah.
Yeah. So today my recovery looks like I'm living my life. I'm doing things what I always wanted to do. I'm learning about myself. I'm serving people. I always wanted to try to do volunteering. I did this while I've been doing in Gordon Moody. So basically, for me to find out who I am, I need to go and try. And this is what I do. I go try things instead of like sitting. I mean, I'm active instead of sitting
Yeah.
and thinking who I am, who I want to be. If the opportunity come, I go and try, and that give me answer. So today, I repaid all my debts, families, family, friends, and I am debt free, which
Well
make me
done.
super proud.
Well done,
And
Sylvester.
yeah, so that's it.
So, and I
Yeah,
think, thank you so much, Sylvester, for really, sharing some really, deep stuff and some really private things there. And I'm glad you're still here, Mark, you as well, and Colin, and that you're sharing your stories to help other people. And, because it's not easy to work in an area which had a huge impact on your individual lives personally. Some people would say, well, I don't want nothing to do with that world, but what you're doing is you're turning it around and you're wanting to help other people, and I think that is absolutely great. I hope you're going to stick around a minute or two. I'm just going to finish reading these out. This is from Asma. Colin, Mark, and Sylvester, your lived experiences has made me more aware of the different challenges that an individual can go through and the impact it can have, not just on the individual, but how it affects relationships. As a senior recovery worker, I've had a few clients who have been on this path of gambling, and it makes me more empathetic listening to you all. Thank you for being so open and honest. And Mark's just commented to say thank you. Everyone has a different story, and recovery can last a lifetime, with many areas affected, including family, relationships, finance, work, housing, and mental health. Anybody who's listening today or is listening to a recording of this, if any of this has affected you in any way, please do reach out for help. If you're affected by gambling harm, whether you're the individual that is doing the gambling or somebody who is, in contact with that person and is affected, please do reach out. I'm going to pass on to Adrian to tell you where you can get that help. And if it's your mental health, although there are the gambling charities that can also provide emotional support, there are the general mental health services that can provide support as well. So Adrian, over to you.
Thank you, Rehana. So thank you, Colin, Mark, and Sylvester. It was great to hear about your experiences. So I know people might be getting hungry, as I can smell some dinner downstairs. So we've got a National Gambling Helpline, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you can call us on 0808 8020 You've got the GamCare website on www.gamcare.org.uk. So there's forums for people in recovery on their gambling journey. There's also live chat in there. You can ring the East Midlands team on 01522 274 880. Alternatively, you can email us on east.midlands@gamcare.org.uk. You've also got Gordon Moody. who we mentioned before do residential rehab. So you can call them on 01384 241 292 or email again at help@gordonmoody.org.uk. You've also got the NHS clinics. You can call them 0300 013 2330, or you can email again on www.eastmidlandsgambling.nhs.uk. But I will put these in the chat as well for anyone who wants these, or just to share as well, Rehana.
Thank you so much, Adrian. Thank you to GamCare, Adrian, your colleagues as well, Nicola and Sarah, for making this possible. And Colin, Mark, and Sylvester, I wish you the very best. Thank you so much for all that you do for helping others. And I look forward to perhaps meeting all of you in person one day and maybe doing some more work together to raise awareness, particularly in the kind of communities I'm working in where there are more additional barriers and stigma due to culture. So I look forward to that. Wishing everybody a lovely evening. Thank you and take care. The information is in the chat. If you want to take that before you leave, please do. Thank you, everyone. Good evening.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.